Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. We're looking at a feeling that, well, every single one of us knows intimately. It's that visceral, lingering pain of everyday slights. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? It's when someone just cuts you off mid-sentence like you weren't even there, or you walk into a room and literally no one looks up. It's a small, sharp hit, but man, it lingers way longer than it ever should. So today, we're breaking down the anatomy of disrespect. We'll look at why it actually hurts so much, and most importantly, how to beat it.
Have you ever been in a group chat, you send a message, everyone reads it, but crickets. No one replies. The chat just moves on like you never even spoke. Almost instantly, you get this awful ache starting in your chest, and you immediately question your own value. You start thinking, wait, did I say something wrong? Do they not like me? Am I just being ignored? It's crazy how fast we start scanning our own behavior, instantly assuming we're the problem the second an interaction goes sideways.
And these everyday slights, they happen all the time. Getting talked over, being ignored, or having a sharp little joke lobbed at your expense. But here's the profound truth about all this. The hardest part of these scenarios isn't actually what the other person did. No, it's what their action makes you believe about yourself. It's that wild story your brain spins up just to make sense of the friction.
Section 1. The story of Alex. The paradigm shift. Let's move to this and see how this builds by looking at a real-world example that is going to completely shift our paradigm on where disrespect actually comes from.
Let's trace this guy Alex and his escalating anxiety. So, week 1, his boss barely speaks to him and never even says good morning. By month 1, his brain has filled that silence with this totally terrible story. He's losing sleep, he's replaying every minor interaction in his head. By month 2, he's absolutely convinced his boss hates him and he's literally ready to quit his job. But then, look at month 3. He finds out his boss is actually going through a devastating divorce. Her silence had absolutely nothing to do with him. She was literally just surviving her own life. Alex's brain just filled her silence with his own insecurities.
Which brings us to the absolute core thesis of this explainer. Disrespect does not come from other people. It comes from your interpretation. Think about it. If someone rolls their eyes at you, strictly mechanically speaking, that is just a facial expression. That's all it is. But your brain attaches years of past dismissals to it. So you aren't just reacting to an eye roll, you're reacting to literally every time you have ever felt dismissed in your life. That is your power. And right now, you're just giving it away. Section 2. The self-worth trap. Outsourcing your value. This is a massive, massive pitfall. You see, when your sense of worth becomes dependent on whether or not someone else gives it to you, you are outsourcing your value. And when you need people to acknowledge you just to feel okay, you've essentially handed them total control over your emotional state.
And this brilliantly illustrates the reality of that trap. When someone is rude to you, 99% of what they are thinking about is their own stress, their own image, and their own problems. You are maybe 1% of the equation. That person who completely ruined your afternoon, they moved on 10 seconds later, but you're still carrying it around. You are giving them rent-free space in your mind, agonizing over an interaction they have already forgotten.
We have got to stop collecting evidence for a case against ourselves. Every single time someone ignores you or talks over you, you take it as this false proof that your voice doesn't matter, that you just aren't enough. You're using other people's distracted, stressed-out behavior as evidence that you lack value. But your worth is not up for a vote, and it certainly doesn't drop just because someone else was being careless.
Section 3. The 3-step response protocol. Tactical execution. So how do we actually handle this in real time? Because let's face it, people will inevitably be rude. The goal of this explainer is not to teach you how to somehow magically avoid those moments, because that's impossible. Instead, it's to teach you how to respond completely differently when they do happen.
Here is the practical utility you can use the very next time you feel slighted. The protocol is super simple, but it is incredibly effective. Step 1, pause. Step 2, ask a real question. And step 3, decide consciously. Let's actually break these down so you can see exactly how this works in practice.
So the very first thing you do is pause. Why? Because your first reaction is almost always emotional, and emotional reactions almost always make things worse. That pause is where your true power lives. It's that 1 second between what happened and how you respond. So, when it happens, you just pause. Let the silence do the work. Now, what's really interesting about this is step 2, asking yourself a real question to separate discomfort from disrespect. They feel exactly the same in the moment, but look at the comparison. Discomfort is personal, it's internal, it's about your own insecurities being triggered. But disrespect? That's external. That is purely about their poor behavior. The moment you intellectually separate these two things in your head, you'll immediately feel way less triggered.
Then we hit step 3, deciding consciously how much this actually matters. Not every single comment needs correcting. Not every slight needs addressing. Sometimes looking right at someone who just made a rude remark, saying absolutely nothing and just letting it go, that is the ultimate act of control. That silence isn't passivity. It's you saying, I am not spending my energy on something that doesn't deserve it.
But what about when it is real? Section 4, setting boundaries without anger, handling real disrespect. This is for those situations where someone is consistently dismissive, they repeatedly talk over you, or they blatantly take credit for your work, because we are absolutely not ignoring that.
The absolute secret to calm boundary setting is that you do not need anger to be taken seriously. In fact, the calmer you are, the more weight your words actually carry. If they interrupt, you stop mid-sentence and plainly say, I wasn't done, and then you just keep talking. If they try to take credit, you calmly state, that came from our earlier conversation. You hold your ground firmly without ever raising your voice. You make your stance clear without needing them to apologize or suddenly see the light.
Okay, so we've talked about handling others, but now let's transition to handling ourselves in Section 5, building unshakable self-respect, the deep fix. Because true emotional freedom means you can walk into literally any room, interact with any kind of behavior, and leave feeling completely whole.
Let's clearly define what we mean by real self-respect. It is not about the shiny image you present to the world. It's about how you treat yourself privately when nobody else is watching. It's those quiet, internal conversations you have with yourself after something really hard happens. It's the grace and the standard you hold yourself to when you mess up.
I absolutely love this metaphor. Don't walk around with an empty cup waiting for someone else to pour into it. When you learn to validate yourself first, you immediately stop accepting less from others because you aren't desperate for their approval to fill you up. Your identity stops being fragile simply because you are the one securing it.
So the crucial point is that this unshakable self-respect is built daily, in private, using these basic foundation blocks. It's how you respond to your own failures. It's whether you actually keep the commitments you make to yourself. It's taking your own opinions seriously and fiercely protecting your time and energy. These small, private actions grow a self-worth that no external slight can easily break.
Which leaves us with this final, ultimate question. Because the day you stop anxiously asking, do they respect me, and you start looking in the mirror and asking, do I respect myself, is the exact day that other people's opinions lose their grip on you forever. Just think about that for a minute. Stop waiting for the world to give you what only you can give yourself.